I guess we'll call the meeting of the Donner County Fish and Game Commission to order. I see another commissioner coming, but why don't you go ahead and make the roll call, Jackie, when you get there. I called the meeting to order. Now it's time for roll call.
Present. Here.
So anybody have anything to add or change in the minutes of the previous meeting? Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting?
I so approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Public comments. Any public comments at the moment? If you have public comments, just a minute. If you have a public comment, you need to come please to the center and we'll listen for 3 minutes.
Say your name.
3 minutes. Yeah, about 7 or 8 years ago, they said that to lengthen the runways out there, we had to give up our roads at Pacific Shores. They took all the roads out and never lengthened the runways a foot. So what's the deal? Huh?
I'm not sure that comes under our auspices exactly, but that's a board
Well,
of supervisors deal.
Fish and Game was in on it.
I'm not going there.
Huh? All right, that's my bitch.
You have to turn your mic on so that they can record you, Helen.
So sorry. Is it on? Okay. I said that's, everything you said is true, but it's a bit premature for the project, ongoing project. And it was,
Sounds like there is some investigation going on at the moment about exactly your question.
Really? It should be.
It sounds like there is.
Good. Who's investigating?
several people.
They may refuse to answer that question on the grounds that might incriminate them.
That wouldn't help us any.
Any other public comments? I don't think we have any status reports. I see no governmental agencies today, so we'll move on down to business under public lands, state and federal. Any discussion of state and federal lands at the moment? Any discussion of stuff happening on private lands? Aha, now we're at elk. So I don't know if anyone, evidently the state has decided to have a Fish and Game Commission meeting on Valentine's Day and the 15th, which is kind of interesting to me. It would seem that they would maybe not do it on Valentine's Day, but they are. But so, and what they're proposing in their mammal hunting staff summary for the recommendations for elk hunting under share, which we mostly know what share is. Right now, they're proposing to vastly increase the number of tags. I mean, I'm talking a lot. As an example, in Siskiyou County, they've had under share, they've had 2 bulls and 2 antlerless tags available there. They're proposing to go to 20 bulls and 20 antlerless. Okay. In Northwest area, which is our area, Humboldt-Donner County, there have been 34 bull tags. They're proposing that to go to 40. And there have been 34 cow tags. They're proposing that to go to 60. Okay. The other big in Tehachapi, they're supposing to go from 20 to 40 on the bulls and from 15 to 60 on cows. And in Mendocino County, where we know there's an issue, they're going from 2 bull tags to 20 and from 4 cow tags to 30, which in essence means it's been a total share in California has been 61 cows and 61 bulls and 57 cows. They're proposing with these changes to go to 123 bulls and 172 cows. Now, that could be good. One would assume that that's good. I don't know how that affects us here because there's a lot of area that they say is relatively unhuntable, kind of, that has significant elk inhabitants on private property, right? So I don't know how they, in essence, figure to kill 172 cows when they've been not necessarily 100% on the cows that they've already got. So we'll see. That would be a good thing if they could figure out how to remove some cows and some bulls from the area in and around Crescent City that they're creating a monster. Because they are creating a monster, aren't they?
They said we have until April 1st to get in any share properties.
To add share properties
Yeah.
or adjust your share property locations till April 1st. Okay. Anybody have anything to add about share and tag counts?
For Del Norte, it would only go up 6 tags or go up 30 something tags.
You gotta write
Well,
that.
34 to 40.
It's been 34
And now it's
bulls.
40.
They're proposing to go to 40.
Yeah.
It's been 34 cows. They're proposing that to go to 60.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're proposing to go from 64 total to 100.
Now, Rob, was that just on the private land and for Northwest Hunt and share? And or
That's
just
share only.
share only?
That is
Okay.
share only. It says share only.
Then how,
Right
was
there.
there I haven't read it. Was there an increase in the Northwest tax?
That's the.
I didn't look at the Northwest Hunt, only because the share thing caught my eye and I only printed a 1/2-inch stick. I didn't print the full 1-inch stick of the mammal hunting.
I think when I read it, and that's why I said I didn't know if it was in here, I think they're increasing the Northwest tax too.
Oh, I think so.
What's that?
3 to 27 or something like that.
Oh,
I don't know. I
No.
just remember seeing increase.
there's more than 3 Northwest Hunt tags.
I think it's significantly more than that.
There's more than that in the zone. I don't know what the numbers are. But there are more Northwest Hunt tags in the Northwest zone than 3. Definitely.
Now, have they mentioned anything about deprivation tags along with this? No?
Landowner tags, they're reducing the property size.
Yeah, they're proposing to reduce property size, but they have landowner tags. Right now, the landowner tag requires you to have 640 continuous acres. They're proposing that to go down.
I
Yeah,
think
that's correct.
it's 50 or 60 or
What
something
they've
like that.
totally settled on yet, we don't know.
Okay.
We don't know. So that takes care of that one, I think.
And we can call in and make comments. If people read this, you can call in but you have to call ahead. It used to be just if you called in, but you have to call ahead and get your name on it. You can call in and comment.
So maybe we move to the Chinook and the Klamath. I see that Jackie has given us a whole bunch of good stuff on fishing on the Klamath. Which I obviously have not read since we just got it. Jackie, or I mean, Jennifer, you want to talk about the Klamath River or no? I know where you work. I know where you work. Yeah, so. Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's supposedly a whole bunch of changes on the Klamath. So if nobody has a lot to add, since we've not had the chance to review that, maybe we'll go ahead and move to the Smith. Aha! Perfect.
Hello. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jennifer Jacobs. I am the Fisheries Division Manager for Talawah-Dainey Nation. And we have been doing the sonar project on the Smith the last few years, and we were requested to come present today for this season. And so I'm going to have Jesse Nolan, who's a Tribal Resource Specialist for Talawah-Dainey Nation, give that presentation because he has worked on every sonar project that has happened on the Smith and has the most knowledge about it. So I'm going to hand it over to him.
Great.
Well, good evening. My name is Jesse Nolan, and I'm a Tribal Resource Specialist in the Talawah-Dainey Nation's Fisheries Division. I presented an overview of the sonar project to this commission last spring, and I'm here to provide an update on the 2023-2024 season. I'm going to start off by giving a quick overview of the sonar project for anyone who wasn't here for the last presentation, and then we'll move into what we've observed so far this season and how the results compare to previous sonar estimates produced for the Smith. Were you able to get my PowerPoint? Okay, let's advance to the next slide. So what are DITSN and ARIS? They're imaging sonars. The acronym DITSN stands for Dual Frequency Identification Sonar, and ARIS stands for Adaptive Resolution Imaging Sonar. The sonars work just like a fish finder in a boat. They transmit sound pulses that reflect off objects and return to the sonar transducer, with the results being converted into digital imagery. The advantage of imaging sonars is that they can capture images in the dark and through turbid water that cannot be viewed using traditional optical imagery like an underwater camera. The imaging data created by the sonars is near video quality, making data interpretation relatively easy. The primary limitation of the sonars is that you cannot identify fish to species. You can see lengths and direction of travel, but there's no way to identify the species. So for that, we have to use other methods. And I'll come back to that in just a little bit. Next slide. So we have a couple embedded video clips here. These are exported from the software that we actually use to analyze the data. You can't use that software in a PowerPoint. So these are just little video snippets. And so you'll have to click on each one independently. The first one on the left here is a video that was taken October 11th of 2023 from the left bank of the river when you're facing downstream. That's an ARIS 1800 model. When the fish are moving from left to right, they're swimming upriver. When they're moving from right to left, they're swimming downriver. Okay, now the middle one, please. The middle clip was taken on November 1st, 2023 with the ARIS 1200 unit. There's several differences between the 1200 and 1800. The 1800 sonar transmits 96 sound pulses, whereas the 1200 only transmits 48. The 1200 can broadcast the sound further, so we're able to cover more of the river with the 1200 series than we can with the 1800 series. Okay, and the final video on the right. So this video is a clip of some seals passing through the project site on November 30th, 2023. The pinnipeds are larger than salmon, and they have a unique swimming motion that makes them pretty easy to identify. Okay, next slide. So here we have a Google Earth image of the boat ramp located off Red Hay Drive. This overview shows the sonar site project components, including the sonar office that we call the shack. That's that smaller picture down in the bottom right corner. As well as the general locations of where the sonar units themselves are deployed. The image also shows a rough approximation of the two array lengths. This Google Earth picture was in low water in the summer, so We don't actually cover the full sonar or the whole channel when the river gets higher, but next slide. So here we have a map of the Smith River watershed taken from Cal Water Boards. The green line depicts the watershed boundaries. The project site, the red dot in the upper left, is downstream of the vast majority of the spawning tributaries that salmon and steelhead use, meaning that most of the adult fish returning to the Smith will pass through the project site on their way upriver. The only sizable spawning tributary downstream of the project site is Rowdy Creek. Next slide. So the Rowdy Creek Fish Hatchery, weir, and fish trap are below the majority of spawning habitat within the Rowdy Creek Basin, meaning that the trap catch at the hatchery is a good indicator for estimating the run size of Chinook and steelhead that return to Rowdy each season. The hatchery trap data set is the best data available regarding adult salmonid abundances through time for the Smith River, with a comprehensive catch record going back to the fall and winter of 1988. Trap catch data forms the basis of the species apportionment methods that we use on the Smith, and that's again assigning species to our sonar counts. We caught 204 Chinook salmon at the hatchery this season, a big improvement from last year's catch of 76. We've only caught 17 steelhead so far at the hatchery trap this season, but the water's been so high and you can't use the trap in the super high flows. So we know that there's more fish that have been passing by that we haven't had a chance to get our hands on. Next slide. Here's a graph of the estimated net or number of net upstream migrants per day observed from the start of the season on September 20th through February 10th. The red line depicts the gauge height in feet from the gauging station at Dr. Fine Bridge. A relationship between an increase in stage height at the gauge and an increase in fish migration through the sonar site is clearly evident, particularly earlier in the season when we're looking at Chinook passing through. Next slide. So here's our preliminary Chinook estimate. The number is 22,353. This number will eventually be revised downward after we work with CDFW to subtract the coho portion that we are not able to estimate because we don't catch them in Rowdy Creek. The department, Jolien Walkley, they conduct spawner surveys up in Mill Creek, so they get a rough idea of how many coho are returning to Mill Creek. So we'll work with them in a couple months after their spawning season's wrapped up, and that'll get subtracted, some off the Chinook run and some off the steelhead run. So this year's estimate is significantly larger than last year's. Last year with 8,206 was the lowest of all sonar monitoring on the Smith. It was nice to see a lot of fish back in the river again this year. Next slide. So the big Chinook run this season attracted a lot of attention from the harbor seals. We've observed 572 pinnipeds moving through the sonar project. Another big increase from last year where we only made 71 observations. So the seals clearly saw the big run of fish and came up and they camped out on top of the runs of fish. Next slide. So we're midway through the steelhead season now and currently averaging about 100 fish per day. To date, our steelhead estimate stands at 4,288 through February 10th. The chart shows the steelhead estimates for previous seasons for the same time frame, and then on the bottom there's the season total. So you can see that we're past the midpoint of the season as far as numbers go, but it's a better run than last year. We'll see how much we get in the next 2 months. We pull the sonars at the end of March. Next slide. So this one is our recording efficiency, which is simply a measure of the time that the sonars are in and recording data versus the time elapsed. For the season, we're at 95.1%. The blue bars are the recording efficiency for each day. The orange line is the stage height. So you can see where we have those big flows in early December. And then again, the middle of January, those blank spots are where we didn't record any data or we had reduced recording efficiency. And that's all I've got. Does anybody have any questions?
Hi, locally, what are the spawning areas for identified spawning areas?
There's some spawning that is thought to occur way up the South Fork, like very high up the South Fork, and also some up in the North Fork. They haven't been observed spawning in the Middle Fork for a couple decades. Other places, we've seen a very small number in Rowdy over the last 12 years. We used to do spawner surveys up there and we saw a couple in there. Mill Creek definitely gets the majority of them. And then the juveniles, they spread out, you know, the fish that are spawning now, the juveniles will come out. Next winter, they come down to the lower river and they move up the tributaries. Like they're in Rowdy Creek down below the weir, which the weir hopefully will be coming out this summer. And that'll allow coho juveniles access to Upper Rowdy and hopefully kind of restart a population up there. But Mill Creek is definitely the stronghold of coho, so to speak.
When we lived up in Alaska, they seem to have a lot of successful spawning in sloughs. And I was wondering, there's a lot of sloughs there that are still blocked off,
Uh-huh.
you know, on the reservation ranch.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've done a lot of work with coho spawning, but most of the money that comes in to work with coho is targeted on Mill Creek. There's summer dive work that is spread throughout the watershed. So we get a chance to see where the juveniles are, but trying to access some of the more remote reaches is really hard to do this time of year where daylight is short and you've got long drives and long hikes in. So we've seen juveniles way up the South Fork and way up at the North Fork, but trying to access those areas to see how many adults are actually going up and spawning where we're not able to do it this time of year. And the funding for that work has shrunk down now where it's really just a Mill Creek focused effort. But I'm not a part of that work anymore. Does anybody else have any questions?
Can you see sturgeon on there?
About the middle fork, didn't have.
Yeah, he was asking about coho spawning locations and oh yeah, no, the steelhead are spread throughout the watershed. They spawn everywhere.
Right.
Yes, we can spot sturgeon. Last year we had, I want to say it was like 25 sturgeon that we observed moving through the sonars. This year I've only seen one. We made a small effort from the forks down and up to Tinkers on the South Fork looking for them this summer because the year before there was a group of like 25 of them up at Tinkers Hole on the South Fork. And so we went and checked those areas and checked the forks confluence, and there was only some sturgeon spotted down in the early hole. So it just seemed like there wasn't as many sturgeon in the river this year as there was the year before.
How big are they, the sturgeon? About how old?
I'm not sure on the aging. We saw them, I'd say from 4 to 8 feet in that kind of range. So pretty impressive when you're underwater looking at them. They look a lot bigger. An 8-footer looks like about 12 feet in the water.
No lampreys.
No, I've not been able to determine a lamprey. I think because they're moving right on the substrate and, they've got a pretty narrow profile that I have not seen anything in the data. And at this point, I've looked at like 50,000 hours of the data. So I've seen a lot of it. And the lamprey have definitely moved through, but I haven't been able to identify them.
There used to be a big silver run in Lake Tallow, Lake Earl and up Rowdy Creek, Yalker Creek, and you people should look into that because it ain't happening.
Right. I've heard that they've been observed in there. I have not done any work in the lake myself. I'm strictly a Smith River guy, but I have heard that. I know that there's awesome cutthroat. True. Trying to get funding for some of that stuff is difficult. We have to scrap together what we can to even do this sonar project, looking at, Chinook and steelhead that we all know, I grew up here catching these fish here, and that's how I got into the profession I'm in. But just trying to get money to monitor the fish that we fish for and catch is hard enough. So it's hard to get any new money to do new science, unfortunately. Anybody else?
If there's no other questions, thank you very much for coming. Very much appreciate it. And that's good information. I know at the RCD meeting, Jennifer presented a thing and this pretty well matches it. There's obviously been not a lot of steelhead registered yet since the end of December, but hey, there's still time.
That's right. And the sonars were able to operate in high water for the most part. The right bank one that's on the boat ramp side, back in previous years, we've kept that in all the way up near to a monitor stage. But what happens is the fish actually just pretty much stop moving when you get those super big flows. So, but the hatchery trap, when the flow is really moving through there's been a lot of big wood moving down Rowdy. And so we have to keep the weir down. And when the weir's down, the fish are not going to end up in our trap. So it's been a really low catch so far. But I think that it's not because the population is super small. I think it's just a lack of trapping effort. We haven't had the right water for it.
Have you been able to speak to many guides to see what they're saying about the steelhead population and what they've caught?
Yeah, it seems like catches are better this year. Last year our sonar kind of agreed with fishing reports and everybody's consensus was it was just a real low year. And this year when the water's been reasonable, Guys are catching fish. I wouldn't say it's great, but I'd say it's not concerning.
Anybody else have anything to add? Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
It's good. Yeah, sure.
Just before we move on to the next topic, I had emailed Jackie a letter that the Rowdy Creek
Oh.
Fish Hatchery Board of Directors, had sent to the state. And so just kind of for you guys to consider, we were hoping maybe either you as the commission or maybe requesting that the Board of Supervisors send a similar type letter. Basically, the request is if they were going to do emergency closures in the future, like they did this past year, that they would allow for the harvest of hatchery fish. We spend a lot of time and money and resources to produce these fish and release these fish. And so it's kind of like very disheartening when, a year goes by and nobody can harvest those fish. So it's just kind of like putting that out there in case something like this were to happen in the future, that, hopefully folks that are out fishing could still harvest the hatchery fish. So.
Well, that's certainly something that we should consider writing a letter of support, because there's no question about the fact that all these years that the fish hatchery has been in existence, that was the main reason for establishing it initially, and the main reason for having it at the moment is to allow sportsmen to catch those fish and to harvest them and use them, not just to raise them and not ever see them again. So I think it would be something good for the commission to write a letter to the Fish and Game. This is going to Fish and Game for the meeting Wednesday or next month.
Well, we had already sent this letter, and Tribal Council also sent the letters. We're kind of maybe with a lot of voices, it's something that they
Yeah.
take seriously.
Yeah, this is February 5th, and I'm assuming it got to them prior to their deadline for the 14th meeting, which is Wednesday.
I mean, it was sent on the fence, so
Yeah,
they were-
yeah. Okay, because I don't know, they have some kind of a goofy deadline date to submit information prior to the council meeting, or the commission meeting, and I don't know how many days prior to the meeting their deadline is.
That
We
was
experienced
not-
that once before. We experienced an issue with that once before, and maybe Jeff knows. 5 days. Yeah, and
So you
so
would've
in
made-
theory then, if it's 5 working days and it's the 14th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this probably didn't make it to them in time, probably, not sure, for this current February 14th meeting. Because you sent it on the 5th and their deadline would have been the 7th. 5 working days prior to the first date of the meeting,
That doesn't.
maybe.
That doesn't mean they can't look at it the day of the meeting. It just, there's no guarantee they're gonna look at it.
Yeah,
But
okay,
It can still be delivered to them.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the one from the board just went to regional, it went to Tina, but the one from tribal council, went to Tina and the commission, so, and it got sent a little earlier, so it might have gone in.
Yeah.
I know that they were gonna speak over it, so
Yeah, okay.
we'll see.
Well, are any of the commissioners interested in formulating a letter of support for harvesting and allowing fishermen to keep hatchery raised fin clipped salmon?
I would think so. That's what the purpose of the whole thing was, wasn't it?
Yes.
I don't see how they can stop you from doing it. They didn't exist before you guys started releasing.
They
They're
can,
not stopping us from doing it, but we released the fish and then nobody.
But the purpose of the whole thing was to be able to catch. I think it's overstepping by the CDFW, as you.
well, what they did, of course, is they eliminated all salmon fishing.
Yeah.
All salmon fishing for everything. And this letter, rightly so, is asking that if they continue the all salmon fishing, that they in fact allow fin clipped, Rowdy Creek raised salmon to be harvested and consumed. And that's what they're there for. I mean, that's the whole reason that the hatchery was started many, many years ago, was to people to be able to catch them and so forth. So they can you know, the 86th ocean fishing, the 86th the salmon fishing, the 86th, I'm surprised there's anything that they haven't 86. So,
We
We
made
still
clear
can't
in the
allow
letter
it.
that we're not advocating for no wild Chinook harvest. This
Right.
is the new minimum. This-
Right.
If the river is open to fishing, you should be able to keep hatchery fish, because people were still out fishing, but you couldn't, by law, keep a hatchery fishing, hatchery fan.
yeah, there were people fishing for steelhead and trout. It was in theory illegal to fish for salmon as a byproduct or a bycatch if you were out fishing for steelhead or trout in November, December, and you actually caught a salmon, you had to release it. Supposedly. Supposedly, that was the rule. And so now maybe if that's able to get changed, and so is there a motion to write a letter of support?
I will. I motion, I motion, I make a motion that we write a letter of support to
And-
catch the hatchery fish. To
To be able,
keep,
to be able to fish, catch, harvest, and consume a hatchery fin clip salmon on the Smith River. Okay. Is anybody going to volunteer to write said letter? Pardon me?
I'll second it.
I'll second.
Anybody going to volunteer to write said letter?
There is volunteer.
Okay. I will write a letter. Do we have to have it come back to the council commission, or can we just write a letter and send it in? Okay. I'll write the letter. Pardon me?
I did.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I will write a letter and I will submit it to Jackie for the salmon on the Smith. And she'll distribute it to everyone. And then if everybody can get back to Jackie, hopefully in the next week or 10 days, we can get it set in to be available for the next commission meeting. Okay, and now any idea whether you might be going to the Board of Supervisors for the same letter?
Well, that's what we were gonna, we didn't know if you guys wanted to request them to do that. I mean, we can from the board of directors as well. We'll send them copies of ours. Okay. That way. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I might do is I might go ahead and go to a meeting or something after we get our letter. Cause we'll send a copy of it, like Jackie said, to them, and then I can go there and request that the Board of Supervisors send a letter of support for that to the commission. It's because, I mean, I think, you know, and the more individuals that can send it in is fine. I don't get the feeling that a letter from the board or a letter from us or a letter from an individual has any more or less weight with the commission. I think it's just a letter. I mean, they should take more credence to the Board of Supervisors asking for the question. They should make more credence from the nation asking for that and so forth, but I'm not sure that they do. So we'll just see how that plays out. One would hope that salmon fishing returns soon, especially in light of the Ditson report, which is pretty beneficial, right? I mean, it's back to where it should be, and more, hopefully, compared to what it was. Because there was a downward trend. And all of a sudden now it popped up. What was the water situation like in the river three years ago? Was it dry those winters? I wonder. That's one of the things I always thought, the downward trend is dry potentially, and not very good access to the little tributaries and so forth, and maybe having to spawn there, and maybe it's all ocean. What do you think?
I get this question a lot, especially after the total closure of salmon fishing last year. People say, oh, it's because we weren't allowed to harvest them in the ocean. But the fish that we saw, there was a lot of 4-year-old fish there. That means those fish were available in the ocean fisheries as 3-year-olds. And so they clearly survived that harvest. And so I think, like you're saying, there's multiple factors going on here. I think that they must have had better conditions for migrating out as juveniles. I imagine that they also found a pretty productive path of ocean because a lot of the fish were 25 to 30 plus pounds. The part that is hard to reconcile is that some of the other rivers did not see a real strong bounce back like we did. And so it's anybody's guess,
Yeah.
how the Smith River bound fish found a productive patch of ocean and came back in good numbers, like you said, back to what we saw in the original years, 2010, 2011. And we know from the hatchery trapping data set that 2010 was the biggest Chinook catch record. There was 3,500 caught that year, so a really big number of fish in 2010. So to see the main stem estimate with sonar now kind of matching that, we didn't get that many fish at Rowdy Creek, but you can't compare year over year necessarily with the hatchery trap because of high water events and how the trap is operated. It's going to really lead to what the catch, that we end up with. So yeah, I think that water year must have been a role in finding good productive ocean, had to play a part. Obviously, some would have been caught in the commercial and sport ocean fisheries, but it's anybody's guess, what number or what this percentage of the run actually have been harvested in the ocean.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else have anything to add about salmon fishing on the Smith? Okay, Lake Earl hunting closures. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it very much. Always interesting information. Hi, Jeff.
Wrap up last season. And so Jeff's in here too, maybe. Again, my name's Jeff Reed. I'm with the Del Norte Waterfowlers, among other local groups. This year, there were planned, and I didn't bring all my numbers with me, but that's a good thing. There were roughly 40 planned closure days during the waterfowl season out on the south end of Lake Tolowa. The dune stewards and the various crews out there worked roughly 35 of those days, and we certainly give them credit for that. There were 5 days where the work was canceled over the phone line. There was one day we observed no one working, but we're willing to give and take on whether they were there, we didn't see them, or they weren't there. One day is certainly not a big deal. The phone line thing worked really well as far as we could tell. It was usually pretty well updated on time and sometimes ahead of time. So our only real concern at the end of all of it was we were hoping that the work crews that were there for more than 3 or 4 days, and there were several time frames that were 10 to 14 days long. We were hoping those work crews would be 12 to 15 people, and it didn't really work out that way. I didn't do the math on an average crew size yet, but it went from an average crew size in the last 2 years of 2 to at least 5 or 6, so it's an improvement from the standpoint of getting more restoration done, which for us has been part of the goal. Let's get the darn thing done and get it self-sustaining and open it back up to public use. And if you guys want to keep that on your agenda all the time, that's fine, but I won't be coming back to give much of a report until late summer. I might come here for other things, but, and I'm sure Sherman and I will sit down with Sean and his crew later in the summer and work out a plan for the upcoming season. And then in theory, there might only be one more, according to Fish and Wildlife. I don't believe it, but that's what they told us last year. So we'll see what's ahead. And with that, I thank you all for your attention on this matter for the last couple of years, and we'll see how it plays out in the future.
Well, it's pretty, I get maybe the right word is rewarding, that the idea of the phone system and the recorded message worked. And it was benefit to the hunters. And it, of course, was the benefit to the harvesters of the beach grass too, because then they didn't have to worry about somebody being in the wrong place at the wrong time, mostly.
I think that's a lot of it. To us, the more important factor was they actually had a plan and a calendar and a schedule to have workers out there. And the whole thing changed from don't quote me on this, but it's okay. They went from a hobbyist approach to dune restoration to an actual organized event.
Yeah,
And given the 7 figures that they got to help fund all this, that's how it should be done.
Yeah.
But that's just my 2.5 cents worth.
well, obviously the, I don't know if the right word is pressure
Well,
that was exerted was beneficial and it worked for exactly what you said. They then had a harvest plan. They had a certain number of days scheduled and mostly held to that schedule. And you can work with that, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
that's
all
good.
good.
That's good.
All righty, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Sure. We've got stuff on the agenda that, yeah, never mind. Okay, junior pheasant hunt.
So we have a tentative date of August 10th. We found out it could be any time of the year, pretty much. So that was, we can decide it was before any of the hunting season really started. It was after fair, but before the school. So it was like, so that was cool. Also in the future, if it works out this year, we could possibly have 2 throughout the year, since it's the whole entire year. Earlier one. Right now we have 2 sessions with 10 kids each. So a morning session and an afternoon session. We have 50 kids, around 50 kids set up with Aaron Berger and a couple other people for hunter safety program. We're talking about throwing out an idea, or in order for them to actually do the pheasant hunt, have a, not like a trial, but they have to go to a gun range and shoot. And if we can, there could be like an incentive to get kids, like, to make the one a mandatory thing. You know, it would be, you get to go, you get to have first pick what field you go in, what time you do it. And so it forces them to go to the range beforehand. Because I think that's really necessary for safety. Big thing is safety that we're talking about. And then we're also looking into getting pop-up pheasant shooters, bird throwers, because there's a balance between, you know, having the kids do their hunt, but number 1 priority is safety. Don't want kids swinging that's never gone hunting before, you know, and birds going every which way. You know, birds are going to be birds, but at least you can try to have area. Okay, you know, the bird's going to be, you know, get ready. It's coming from this area, and we can have a release. So we're looking into, Coast Central has a grant for the betterment of local communities, and it would be great for the pheasant hunt, and getting a couple, probably like 6 to 8 of these pheasant shooters. And they're all remote control, so, you know, one person can be in control, so you're not having multiple birds go off at one time. So that's kind of what we're looking for, or that's what's going on right now. We're looking for qualified volunteers for August 10th. We're trying to have 1 person with every hunter, and that person cannot be a parent or anyone associated with that kid. Just because if they're somehow know that hunter and there's a bird, they know it's over here, they could get kind of, you know, I'm going to get my son or daughter a pheasant, you know, I'm not going to do so. So we're trying to put 5 kids in each field. No, 3 and 2, so 5 kids at a time. So we're looking for, you know, 6 hunters that know guns and know the hunting responsibilities. So we're looking for. So we were talking about dogs. The hard part with dogs is trying to, you know, if you have a trial, because then, you know, how do you test the dog? Because person A might have a dog and, oh, my dog's great. And then all of a sudden you have a dog running across. So it's the dog, the dog issue is, it'd be nice to have dogs, but how do you know what dogs? to bring. Yeah, and I know a couple of them. Yeah, but then at the same time, would he want to bring his dogs?
Well, this is.
So-
I mean, we've got pheasants over dogs before Wick
Yeah,
and without.
yeah. So it's, my number one thing for this is safety, and it's, you know, it's for dog, people, hunter. And so I think right now we're just.
Yeah.
Looking for, like, put out the words for volunteers, Helen was saying. last.
I think Aaron and Dave were gonna kind of talk to the people, not screen them, but
Yeah, go
make
through.
sure that, that they're there and realize the situation for the beginning hunters.
It's more about the hunt rather than, it'd be awesome if every kid got a pheasant or two, but it's more about the, you know, the hunt, going for it. So along with that grant, we were, you know, looking at getting, you know, the high vis jackets and pushing safety. So that's
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah,
Our
cause
update.
like, what did, Aaron say that the Fish and Game, or
Oh, they're not-
Frank, rather, they'll provide like the orange vests for it, but then we're thinking like the people that are in attendance, the safety guides, so to speak, they might have like a lime green vest or something like that. And I think it's really helped with the wardens because Aaron went back and got it set up. And Dave's the one that's gonna help him with the hunter safety. But they have it now where each warden that's teaching it currently can't have more than 25 people at a time. And so like he said, there's what, 47, 48 right now, there's a couple more openings. And so both of those guys are gonna be there. And those dates are March 25th, which is a Sunday, and it's from 12 noon or 10 to 12 noon, hour break, and then from 1 to 5. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that's spring break for the kids. And to accommodate the adults and everything, it's going to be 6 to 8 each night because you have to have 12 hours of instruction. So that's pretty neat that 40 some people in our community that need to have their hunter safety have signed up. And then if we have the need to have another one, then we will. But you pretty much have to have about 25 each session to do it. But this time they got it so they can have 50.
So, my understanding under this hunter safety, they were gonna do, the safety training for the rifle and pistol type. Is that gonna include it in?
Kind of, they don't do any of the practical application,
Uh-huh.
but all the manuals, Aaron's got and all of those from the state, and there isn't that's something Fish and Game does put out for free. And there's a manual
So
for
they're,
a
so they're not,
a manual workbook
Mhm.
that they can work with, and they go through that book at the class, but then you take it home to study it. Oh, and then we didn't set the date, did we?
Or,
Aaron wants to have a night where they will come out and get on the computer with him and
Oh, yep.
register with the state. So we have to call in and ask him when because we were gonna look and see when the hall was available. So they'll go out there and he'll be there, and then they'll register with the state. We already had a lot of people put their names, and I'd say probably another 5 people could probably sign up because there's always somebody that's gonna have something come up out of that many people that can't do it. And so then they're registered with the state. Then when they're done, each person, be it adult or kid, will get a card.
Mhm.
And then they will be registered with the state for the rest of their life to get, their license. They are not going to do the rifle and shooting follow-up, but like for this hunt, they're gonna recommend that, and Mac already said
Mhm.
that the people can go up there, the kids can go up there and shoot. Like they'll have some guns available. They'll have to buy their own ammunition. and they'll have to go up with a parent, and then those guys up there, they're always really good, with having the kids shoot. Because we actually had people out there before that daddy was walking along with the kid and the kid had never, ever pulled the trigger. I know that sounds kind of bizarre, but it did happen.
And that's what we're trying to make it mandatory to go
Yeah.
shoot.
Yep.
Before,
Huh?
You think they'd be wanting?
yeah.
Oh, I think they will.
Kids are gonna be going, where's my goggles at? I can't see the three.
Yeah.
Well, I think the pheasant launchers, quote unquote, would be good because then, you know, as you just said, you point the kid this way and somewhere out there as you're walking along, the pheasant is going to launch and they don't know when it's going to launch. And probably the person accompanying them doesn't maybe know when it's going to launch, but somebody's over here pushes the button and out the pheasant comes. That's kind of the way it is.
Yeah.
It isn't just
It's
like,
the most
you
realistic.
know, it's hours and hours of complete boredom punctuated by moments of complete terror,
Yeah.
you know?
Which-
An
so that's-
adrenaline rush.
Yeah,
And, you know, if you did it with dogs, you can have it point and then set it off, you know.
sure. Keep the dog out of the way though, so they don't get shot.
Retrieve the dog after the point.
Yeah. Or, you know,
Supposed to walk up on the
another thing we were saying is, you know, it could have some sort of flag where.
Yeah.
And then, because a lot more of dogs up here are more retrievers rather than pointers, utilize retrievers for a dead pheasant rather than a pointer. So that the kids still get used to having the dog with you aspect, but you're not shooting over a dog.
Might just wanna say shoot and make sure that all the kids put the right down. And then make sure it's clear and stuff.
Yeah.
That would make it, safe. And then, Ducks Unlimited, they said they would give a hat to all the kids at the, pheasant hunt too, which would be kind of cool.
Just that.
Okay, oh, elections. That's the last item on the list. So we're supposed to have elections tonight?
With no term limits though.
There's no term limits, the man says.
They're doing really good. What's that? I said, we can just, make a motion to keep everybody the same.
You could if you wanted to, I guess.
That's what I'm saying, no term limits, just leave it the way it is. It's not broke, don't fix it.
I make a motion that we leave everything status quo.
I second that.
Well, really, huh?
Sounds like you're all against me.
You're just getting warmed up.
I don't have a problem. If that's what everybody would like, I'm happy to serve again.
Great.
What's that?
Those of you who don't know, Miss Jackie's house burnt down. Flat to the ground.
Family, that's day, and, yeah, no, we're all.
And I was asked,
When did that?
Basically, a week ago Monday. I was in Berlin and.
Where do you live?
What's that?
Where do you live?
Front of Angel,
What?
Angel Lane,
Oh, I heard that. I didn't know that.
Blue House.
her house.
It's the Blue House, I don't know if you knew where Blackburn used to live, they used to go to Blackburn House, yeah.
Well, I mean, we built that house.
Oh, maybe it was Blackburn. There's some way there.
Yeah, we're.
There's, yeah. So ours is the blue on the corner of Adrian.
Oh.
What percentage did they keep on that GoFundMe? Are we better off to do one? Huh?
Only reason I was asking is whether there was something set up where if in fact those of us who are on the commission who know Jackie, she sits right there,
But I mean.
might
if
want
it-
to, try to give her some help. I mean,
But if it isn't set up, then we should set it up.
yeah, I talked to her this morning, everything's fine, you know, yada, 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 but it's not always just fine, is it?
No.
I mean, there's
Never.
always something that's been forgotten, and that's the only reason why I brought it up. As to whether any of the commission members want to make some kind of a contribution or something from the commission. So,
Tear down and
Thank her.
rebuild new, is it totally burnt or what?
Most likely it's a total rebuild.
So I got a backhoe, I'll come push it over.
And we can do stuff.
Really?
Yeah, got a backhoe, I'll go make a big pile for you.
Well, we thought, let's see, fire, we want to burn it down, it's pretty burn.
Yeah.
But we gotta go through the whole process first, you know, checking for asbestos right now. Once that, then they go in for the cleaning aspect of it, if they clean it, it's worth it, if not, they'll leave the textile, people will take textiles, clean that, store that for us. And anything else we want, clean and store, they'll do that, but temporary housing for 12 months until it's rebuilt. About half. I would think so, it's already in there. Yeah, it's already on. No,
Hard to burn a septic tank.
but the house itself probably needs to be rebuilt.
All paint.
so maybe some of the other commissioners want to get together, give me a call. I can get with Helen, whatever, we can see what we might decide we want to come up with to help our illustrious secretary. Does anyone else have anything for the good of the order, or should we adjourn the meeting?
I just have one thing. You know, all of the fish and game properties around Lake Earl. The derelict condition they've been in. It looked to me like Cal Fire was out clearing all the brush from around them. I mean, one of the houses.
No, that was some work people with Frank. He has come through.
Who was it?
I think it's the CCC boys.
Okay, it's CDC.
I think so. They did like on Bush Creek and then around some of the houses.
I
Is
mean,
that what you're
to-
talking
to
about?
What purpose are they doing this?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Oh, is the Alder Camp?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And the house is on, Kellogg.
Now, why are they doing this? So we can see how derelict the houses are?
Yeah.
They look better with the brush up.
Paying to the homeless.
I disagree. I mean, I agree.
Well, that's the last one we got. Yeah.
We all know that they have plenty of money to purchase and hold lands, but have little or no money for maintenance. Anything for the good of the order? If not, can I hear a motion to adjourn?
I motion.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. Thank you. We'll see you next month.